What if I told you there's a place on Earth where on certain nights of the year, the sky just seems to give up its birds? A place where, under a thick blanket of fog, hundreds of them just fall. Well, today we're headed to Jatinga to unravel one of nature's most haunting and fascinating enigmas.
Okay, so picture this. A tiny, remote village, kind of tucked away in the hills of Assam in India. Every year, as the late monsoon rolls in, it brings this thick, spooky fog with it. And when that fog descends, an ancient and frankly unsettling pattern repeats itself. It's an event that's been a source of both fear and wonder for generations.
So the big question is, what on earth is happening here? Is this some kind of supernatural curse like people used to believe? Is it a bizarre, coordinated act of nature we just don't understand? Or is the explanation something else entirely? To figure it out, we've got to dive into the strange case of Jatinga.
All right, so every good mystery starts with the facts, right? Before we get into any of the wild theories, we have to understand exactly what happens in this village of falling birds.
What's so wild about this is just how incredibly specific the conditions are. This isn't random at all. It only happens between September and November. It's always on dark, moonless, foggy nights, and it's in a super tight window between 6 and 9:30 p.m. The location? Unbelievably precise. A single 1.5-kilometer stretch of road. And it's right there that all these different kinds of birds, from kingfishers to tiger bitterns, suddenly get completely disoriented and tragically fall from the sky.
Now, you can imagine, an event this dramatic and this mysterious was bound to get a sensational name. And it sure did. For decades, the world knew this as the phenomenon of bird suicide. But is that what's really happening?
You've probably heard this term before. It's dramatic, it's memorable, it's the kind of thing that makes a story like this go viral. But that one single, sensational word, suicide, it isn't just wrong. It completely masks the tragic reality of what's actually happening to these poor birds.
So let's just be crystal clear on this one. Calling it suicide is a total misnomer. It's just the wrong word for the job. You know, birds don't have the kind of self-awareness to intentionally end their lives. The truth, according to scientists, is way less mythical, and honestly, a whole lot more tragic.
Here's the most important point to take away. The birds are not suicidal. They are just lost. They're victims of a perfect storm of environmental factors that basically scrambles their senses and turns their entire world upside down.
Okay, so if it's not suicide, what is it? Now we get to the cool part, the science. After decades of research, scientists have pieced together a really solid explanation for how this bizarre event unfolds.
It really comes down to a perfect storm of conditions. First, you've got the weather. The late monsoon brings these high winds and a fog so incredibly dense it basically blinds the birds. This total sensory overload forces them to fly dangerously low, desperately searching for any sign of safety. And that's when they see it, the lure, the village lights. They tragically mistake those lights for the horizon or maybe even the stars, and it draws them right down to the ground.
So there you have it, side by side. The myth is this spooky, supernatural death wish. The reality, it's a tragic environmental accident. It's not some kind of death pact. It's a fatal case of mistaken identity, where a light in the fog becomes a deadly beacon.
But wait, the story might have one more layer. While that fog and light theory is pretty much the consensus, some scientists think there might be an additional invisible force at play here, making Jatinga a uniquely treacherous spot for birds. And this is where it gets even more fascinating. Some researchers think that Jatinga might be sitting on what's called a geomagnetic anomaly. The theory is that shifts in underground water actually disrupt the Earth's magnetic field in that specific area. Now, birds rely on that field like an internal compass to navigate. So just imagine, you're already blinded by fog. And then, on top of that, your internal GPS starts getting scrambled. It's a complete, catastrophic failure of their senses. But you know, this story isn't just about birds or weather. It's also about us. The journey from superstition to science in Jatinga tells us a lot about how we, as people, perceive the world around us. For centuries, local tribes like the Jayantias saw this whole thing as a supernatural event, a weird but welcome gift of food falling from the sky. That started to change back in the 1960s when famous naturalists like Salim Ali brought scientific eyes to the phenomenon for the very first time. Their work paved the way for what's happening today, where the entire focus has moved away from hunting and superstition to conservation and real understanding.
And this, for me, is where the story gets really hopeful. Because understanding the science behind Jatinga didn't just solve a cool mystery, it actually opened the door to protecting these birds.
So what was the result of this big shift from superstition to science? It's been nothing short of incredible. I mean, how much of a difference has it really made? Well, thanks to conservation work and local awareness campaigns, bird deaths have absolutely plummeted. Some reports estimate the decline is over 80%.
So what does this new chapter for Jatinga actually look like? Well, today, trapping the birds is strongly discouraged. Villagers are learning how to manage their lighting during those critical months. There's even talk of sustainable ecotourism, turning this strange phenomenon into a powerful teaching moment for visitors. The focus has completely flipped, from a deadly spectacle to a story of survival and conservation.
Ultimately, the story of Jatinga is just a powerful reminder, isn't it? What once seemed like this dark supernatural curse was really just a complex mashup of weather, biology, and human behavior. It proves that sometimes the most amazing truths are hiding just behind the myths. And it kind of leaves you wondering, what other mysteries are out there, just waiting for us to look past the spectacle and find the science?